actually honestly forgot recording. Thank you so much. Okay, I just now the session is getting recorded, guys. Now the session is getting recorded. Okay, whoever is listening to the recorded videos, it's only been 1 minute that I've started the session. Thanks to Sumati that she reminded. Okay, the test lead or the test manager is supposed to create the test plan, and we have also understood that irrespective of the testing, whether it is QA or manual or functional, okay, or ST or SIT, this is all comes under manual testing. Okay, they have the test plan, they have their own test plan. Okay, if you belong to the automation team, okay, if you're wondering some automation testing, what is automation testing? It is typically done using the tools like Selenium, okay, UFT or UFT or RFT. Okay, so this is what is an automation testing. They have the test plan, they have their own test plan, they create their own test plan. It's not that it will come out from the thin air or somebody would give it to them, but they would have their own test plan. Security testing have their own test plan. This is something we have discussed. They have their own test plan, and similarly performance testing. So we guys have to create our own test plan, just like all the other teams. Just like all the other teams, we have to create our own test plan. More or less the template would look same for all of them. When it comes to test plan, the template is same, but just the contents would be different. Okay, so typically what I used to do is I used to start from the ST test plan. Okay, most of the sections would be similar with minor differences. Then I used to start changing or doing like hand picking and changing the differences, or doing those small minor changes. And there are certain things, there are certain sections wherein there are major changes. So once I started with system testing test plan or the earlier version of my performance testing test plan, usually the work will be 10 to 20%, honestly speaking, guys. Okay, there are certain information that you take from the NFRs and certain information that you collect, and that's about it. So you're good to go. So usually I put like 10 to 20% of efforts in creating the test plan. Okay, 10 to 20%, whether it's a new project or the existing project. Okay, completely new project, so that this is completely new project wherein there are no earlier releases. It's the first time the performance testing is getting done. Maybe it's a new project, or it's like a release base. So you have a earlier plan, okay, earlier project, or it's like every release. Okay, every release. Okay, so if it's like every release, obviously like you would have a old performance testing test plan from my earlier release. I'll take it from there and I'll start it from there. If it's completely a new project and there was no performance testing done before, and then there is no test plans of performance testing, then I would start with the ST test plan. So most of the sections would be same. So wherever the differences, I just use to make those changes. So that's me, guys, but it's up to you how you want it to handle your real-time projects. Okay, then we started going through different sections. We have looked into the different versions. Obviously there will be, as you make the changes, there are different versions. Okay, we did understand about the reviews. Once you create the test plan, you have a peer-to-peer review, the manager review, then the client review. So every time you keep incorporating the review comments, the changes to the test plan, and you come out with different versions of the test plan, and finally you come out with a version wherein you can give a walkthrough. You can give a walkthrough. Walkthrough as in you call for all the people who are matter to you or important, like one guy from network admin, one guy from the database admins, one guy from development team, okay, one guy from architect. So and your manager, the client side manager, the whole program manager, whoever is matter to you, whoever is important to you. Okay, you would invite them for the walkthrough, or you send out a walkthrough invite. Okay, so if you're not sure about who all needs to be invited, you can talk to your manager and he will give you the list. So just send them the invitation and then they are there. So walkthrough means as you go through each and every page, you will walk through, or you read out the important sections, and the related people should agree with you. And finally they would ask any doubts if they have, any questions they have, and finally if everything is okay, then you get a sign off from all the people. Again, when I said sign off need not have to be only one person. Sometimes it could be more than one person. For me, it was 3 people. Okay, so you send the email, send the test plan to them so that they can sign off, and once they signed off, the test plan is frozen. Okay, so or baseline. Okay, frozen or baseline. Okay, so once this means that you're not supposed to make any changes to the test plan, or the people cannot suggest any changes to the test plan, or any of the plan that you have done. Okay, so that's what is usually the test plan goes through the life cycle, or whatever you call is go through. So we started looking at different sections. Okay, we started looking at different sections. Let's quickly go through those sections. Okay, so first, the project background as to why this project has actually started. Okay, we went through that as well. The project could have started because the older version has become completely old, and then you wanted to give new features with a new background. I mean, with a new feel, and then completely you get a different feel for that application. All that, or different reasons, or the certain sections have really slow, or maybe new features needed to be added, so the existing features is not enough. So different reasons why you start the project. Okay, the document purpose, it's very simple. All the related people should know about what is your plan. Okay, so all the downstream, upstream applications, you send this plan as to how you're planning to test. Okay, so it's like you're taking up a mic and telling to everybody as to what is your plan. So it is more like that. So you cannot actually pick up a mic and talk about it. So that's why you create this document, and then you send out to all the people that who is matter to you, and who should know how you are planning to go about and do your performance testing. Test objectives mainly identifying the bottlenecks and looking at the performance of the application. And clearly here you lay down who your audiences are. Okay, it could be your program manager, performance test manager, or it could be even the system testing folks, your developers, your system admins, your database admins, everybody, whoever you think is the audience, you can put it out here. Okay, then we looked at the assumptions, constraints, dependencies, and risks. I would advise you to actually go through all of them, guys. Okay, go through all of them. Okay, it's very important, because so once you start talking about it, okay, in the interviews they would ask you, how can you give me some assumptions that you made in your test plan, or what are the constraints that you have put in your test plan, what are the constraints for your project, or dependencies or risks. They would definitely ask this question. If you say that you're created or involved in creating the test plan, they will definitely ask you what are all the assumptions, constraints, dependencies, and risks. Okay, they might ask. So I have already sent out this test plan to you, so just go through a few of them. Don't try to understand all of them. I've put more points than required. Just go through a few of them so that it stays in your mind. And even if you have remember a couple of assumptions or a couple of constraints, you're good to go. Okay, and a couple of dependencies and risks. They would not expect you to go through all of them. They're just trying to understand whether you have actually created or not when they ask this kind of questions. Okay, no. So that's what we have discussed in the last class. Okay, now we will discuss about the variations. And if you're creating the test plan, guys, you already have the template. Most of the content is already there, so you can start from here, honestly speaking. Or you might have your own template. You can start copying the stuff from here and put it over there and make some changes which is applicable to your project, or which could meet the requirements of your project. So that's what you can do. So the next section is the test scope. Next section is the test scope. So let's talk about this test scope in a completely layman's language. Okay, so but in the real time, it would be a little different from this. But just to get a feel for what is test scope, I'm just telling you. Let's say you're doing the testing for maybe an ATM. Okay, an ATM machine. Actually performance testing never happens for an ATM machine. Okay, honestly speaking, but it might happen as well. But anyways, but just assume, just an assumption, you're doing the testing for ATM machine. Okay, so overall idea when they started creating or building this ATM machine is it should support English language. Okay, let's assume it should support English language. And in US they realized that there's certain areas where there is a lot of Spanish population. Okay, so they wanted this ATM to support Spanish language as well. Okay, and I don't know what is the other popular language in US. Can you guys come out with some other popular languages in US other than English and Spanish? Maybe French or maybe Ethiopian. There's a lot of Ethiopian community over there. So, what is the language of Ethiopia? Can somebody tell me? Because I know there are a couple of people in the class who are from Ethiopia. What is your language, guys? Amharic. Okay, so Amharic. Yeah, I'll go with that. Okay, Amharic language. Okay, let's say certain areas where they want to install the ATM machine, they figured out that there's a lot of French community or Spanish community, English community, and Amharic community. Okay, obviously the English would be the first choice, so they started creating the ATM software related to the ATM. The first language they make sure the ATM supports is the English language. Okay, so for this release, in the next release probably they might add Spanish, and then the later release they might add French and Amharic. Okay, let's assume. So for performance testing, now the English language becomes or let's assume the application or what do I say, the ATM machine supports all of them, but you have a limited time now. Okay, since you have a limited time, you have to clearly mention what is that which is in scope, and you can do the performance testing, and what is that which is out of scope, and you cannot do performance testing. So let's say then the in scope item becomes English. Okay, for this performance testing. Okay, because that's the time, that's based on the timelines, based on your capacity of the performance testing team. You figured out that you can do performance testing for only English, because English is largely used or mainly used. Okay, then this becomes out of scope. Okay, this becomes out of scope, these two. Okay, just to get a feel for what is in scope and out of scope. Okay, then this becomes in scope for this release. Okay, for this 3 months. You already know what is the release, because in the last class I've told you. So release usually goes 3 months. Okay, so in a year you will have 4 releases. Okay, so for this release, just doing the performance testing for English becomes in scope, this becomes out of scope. Like this, you clearly mention what is in scope and out of scope. Okay, so you see what is in scope and then what is out of scope. Okay, so in scope, again there are different sections. Okay, so let's go through each one of them. So once you have defined what is in scope, okay, what is your scope of testing, or what is the features that you're testing, then you clearly lay out your business functionalities or your business process, all the test cases that you're planning to do the testing. Okay, you put it out here. So for these same test cases, you create the test scripts, guys. Okay, we have spoken about this in the workload modeling. Okay, when we have done the workload modeling, we have clearly mentioned that you as a part of NFR gathering, you clearly collect what all the test cases, some people call it as test cases, or business process. Okay, or business process or business processes that you wanted to do the performance testing for, you collect. So that business functionality, you will put it over here. Or in simple words, what all the test cases are that you're planning to test, or what all the test cases that you're planning to create, the test scripts, that you put it out here. That becomes that is the in scope items. That's the in scope items. Okay, then what kind of test that you wanna do, or what kind of test you're planning to perform. Okay, performance testing, typically we haven't got to a stage where we have discussed this, guys, but in performance testing there are different types, okay, of PT or performance testing. Okay, there are different types of performance testing. We haven't gotten to this point yet, okay, in our regular classes. Okay, maybe in a week or two, or probably after 2 weeks, we'll discuss about each one of them. Okay, so there are different types of performance testing. One is load test, okay, and one is stress test, okay. Then the other one is scalability, soak test or endurance test, okay. And then the next one is scalability test, okay, like this. And then the volume test. Like this, there are different kinds of tests. We will discuss in detail, or we will study in detail what each test means. Okay, maybe this is not the right time, or today is not the right time. We're not going to talk about it. If we're going to talk about it, it will take at least a couple of hours as to what each one test is. But at this point of time, you just need to understand that in your test plan, you talk about all of them. You at least you put all of them what you're planning to test. You see, you're planning to test the load test, endurance test, stress test, and the volume test, and maybe the scalability test is not included as a part of this, but in some projects it will be included as well. And the first to start with is a shakedown test. Okay, the first one is to start is a shakedown test or a dry run test. Okay, we have spoken about this, guys. We have spoken about this shakedown test or dry run test. So before the actual test we go ahead and do the testing, it's better you do a shakedown test or a dry run test. Okay, so you mention each one of them clearly over here as to what you're planning to test, okay, and why you are planning to test about each one of them. Okay, now I'm not going to talk about each one of them because it doesn't make too much sense at this point of time, even though I talk about each of them. But review this section, go back and review this section once I clearly explained it to you what are the different types of tests. Okay, but at this point of time, you do understand that all the kinds of tests you wanted to do, you clearly put that in your test plan. Okay, you clearly put that in your test plan. Okay, and there is an activity called performance monitoring which happens, and we discuss about this monitoring probably 3 to 4 days, and what all the things that you wanted to monitor, you put it out here in this section. So maybe I'm jumping the gun and probably talking about this test plan way early, but if I keep postponing, there are so many other topics that I have to discuss. So that's the reason why I'm talking about this test plan at this point of time. Okay, so ideally speaking, you have to know about different types of testing, what is performance monitoring and all that before we actually talk about test plan. But we don't have, once I keep this pushing back, we won't have enough time at the end to cover all the other topics. So that's the reason why I'm talking about the test plan right away. But what I would suggest, guys, is once the whole course is done, go back and look at this test plan again. You will have a completely different perspective at that point of time. Again, I don't want you to read every single line and make sure everything gets into your mind, but just go through the high level as to get a feel for what a test plan is. Okay, because if they ask in the interview, you'll not be in completely like out of sea, or just out of the water, fish out of the water, or it shouldn't be like that. Okay, so that's the reason why. And you see the workload modeling that you do. Okay, we know how to do the workload modeling. You put it out here. Okay, the complete workload modeling sheet, you put it out here. Okay, so as I've told you, one of the very important activity that happens in the test plan is the workload modeling. Okay, this is what once a test lead has created the test plan and distributed this test plan to all the performance testers, this is the section that you would be interested in, because the complete planning, during the execution, with how many users you have to run, what should be the pacing, and all that is mentioned here in this section. Okay, so then you talk about out of scope scenarios as well, features that are tested and feature out of scope. I didn't put anything over here in this section. Okay, so typically, if there is something out of scope, you can put it in this section as well. Okay, then features to be tested. You clearly saying that what all the business processes which are there, all those business processes are the test cases. You have to create the test scripts for that using the Vue.js. And then you're saying that the load scenarios, as I've told you, what is a load, what is load test, what is stress test, Okay, what is soak test and what is endurance test. For each test, how long you want it to run. You see, load test typically goes for 1 hour, but these guys were running for 2 hours. And what is the purpose of the test plan? How you gonna go ahead and do the test plan? What is the entry criteria and exit criteria for this test plan? Clearly mentioned here. Okay, so when I said entry criteria, what I mean is when can you start your test plan? For example, or the shakedown test is completed successfully. That's when you can do that's when you can start the test plan. Okay, so when can you start the test plan is defined in the entry criteria, and when can you say that you're done with the test plan? That's there in the exit criteria. Okay, for example, the response times meet the SLA and test completion report is agreed by the stakeholders. This is when you can say that you're done with the test plan. You're done with the test plan. Okay, entry criteria means the test data is set up, shakedown is done, completed, and all the monitoring that you wanted to do, all the monitors that should be there, they're all in place. So once that is done, that is the entry criteria. Okay, so exit criteria is when you can stop the test or when you can say that you have done with the test. Entry criteria is when you can start with the load test or when you can start executing the load test. That's the entry criteria. So clearly it's mentioned. You can mention it over here, or the lead should mention it over here, so that all your testers, they can go and see, oh, my entry criteria is met, now I can start the load test. And my exit criteria is met, now I need not have to do any more load test. Okay, so that's what it is. So like this, for each test, you have an entry criteria, exit criteria, what are the exact steps that you have to follow and all that. Okay, now finally, the test deliverables. Okay, once the whole performance testing is done, what is the deliverables that the different teams can expect? Okay, once the whole performance testing is done, the first deliverable is the test plan itself. Okay, second one is all the scenarios, actually the test scripts. Okay, I would say test scripts is also a very, very important deliverable. Okay, all the test scripts. Okay, then the scenarios. When I said scenario, the load test, stress test, endurance test, and all that. Okay, the results, the test results, and finally the test completion report. So these are the 5 deliverables usually you will have it. So once you say that you have done with performance testing, you should have all these deliverables, okay, delivered to your client. Okay, so if they have any doubt, they come to the test plan, they look at all the deliverables that you are supposed to give them. They can, if you miss something, they can always ask from. Okay, they can always ask for that particular deliverable. Okay, so before you start performance testing itself, you know what all the deliverables you are supposed to give. So the test plan is this document. Test scripts. Where do you create the test scripts, guys? Where do you create the test scripts? Where do you create the test scripts? So where do you create the test scripts? Yeah, in the VueGen. Okay, so in the VueGen is where you create the test scripts in the test design phase. Okay, so that needs to be done, and this is during the execution phase. The test scenarios is during the execution phase. Okay, so we also know that we already discussed multiple groups will make what? Will make a multiple groups will make a what? Will make a test scenario. We have discussed this. If you have followed my classes, definitely you know that. Okay, multiple groups will make a test scenario. Okay, and this is done in the control. Okay, and finally these 2 things will be done in the analysis. Okay, we haven't gotten to that point yet. Okay, so okay, so that's about it. So these are the deliverables. Okay, I'm going a little fast, but I want you to get a feel for what is a test plan. Okay, so even though I go really in depth and explain, because there's so many concepts here which is not covered in the class and it's very difficult. So try to understand as much as you could, not each and every line, because it's not possible, I'm telling you. Okay, but definitely after the whole course is done, you go back and look at it, you will right away know what each section is, it becomes that much important. So if you want me to give a recap of this whole test plan after the course is done, again I will go through that in case if you wanted it. But at that point of time, definitely you will understand. But you have the recorded videos, you can look at the recorded videos again after the whole course is done. Okay, but again I'm telling you guys, before going through the interview, just look at this test plan. Okay, you will get that confidence. Okay, oh, it's so simple. I mean, these are the things which needs to be there. Okay, and also somebody who haven't done performance testing but you're going as that you have done it, you will have now a better picture, okay, as to what will happen in the real world. Okay, now let's look at the approach. I'll go through a couple of points to get a feel for what is the approach is. Okay, so you see, when will the performance testing needs to be done? Okay, when is the performance testing get started, guys? Can somebody like read it out for me, or yeah, can you please read it out for me? When does this performance testing done, or when will the performance testing be done, guys? When would the performance testing be done? Can you unmute yourself and read it out for me, please? One of you.
Performance testing must be conducted after the completion of SIT.
What is SIT, guys?
System integration testing.
Wonderful. Okay, always remember that in testing there are different testings. First, system testing will be done. Okay, people typically call this as manual testing or functional testing. Then system integration testing is done. Okay, then we are supposed to do performance testing. And if there is security testing as well, then security testing as well. Okay, so performance testing and security testing can be done in parallel. Okay, both of these can be done in parallel. In the interviews, they will ask about this question. So in the recent interview, as to one of the students have went to the interview, they did ask you, so when will you do performance testing? When will you do performance testing? So the appropriate answer is once the system integration testing is done. Once the system testing is done, then you have a system integration testing, and once that is done, performance testing ideally. But for me, what has happened is once the system testing was done, okay, so the system integration testing and performance testing and security testing, okay, these were all done in parallel. They're all started in parallel because of lack of time. And this is what actually happens in the real world as well. Okay, because once these two testings are done, you might not have enough time to do performance testing. Okay, so better you start your performance testing. Typically in most of the cases, it starts as soon as the system integration testing is done. So this candidate has answered the question. Okay, after system testing, our performance testing was done. Okay, so after system testing, my performance testing was done, which is the right answer. This is the right answer. Okay, then immediately the interviewer has asked why. Okay, why after performance testing the system integration? Okay, yeah, then can somebody tell me why it should be that way? Okay, whoever is there, somebody who's not completely new to IT field, it's very difficult to answer, but somebody who's already in the IT field, they can speculate as to why. Okay, if it's lack of time, then both of them should be done in parallel. But what I'm asking is why after system testing, performance testing could be done, but why not in parallel with system testing? Why performance testing needs to be started only after the system testing? Even for my project, you see, after the system testing is done, in parallel to system integration testing, I was doing performance testing because of lack of time. Ideally, it should be after system integration testing, but this is what it is. Okay, but at least the system testing needs to be done before performance testing. What could be the reason for that? Okay, I'm getting some answers. Okay, Sumati, after functional testing only PT must be done. Yes, Sumati, that's what I'm saying, but I'm asking why. Okay, why? What should be the reason? Wonderful, guys. Wonderful, Shraddha and Samir. Wonderful guesses. Okay, Rahul, you gave it a try, even though IT is new to you. Wonderful. Okay, so typically after system testing, after system testing, okay, after system testing, there are no defects. Okay, no defects in the application. Some people call this as bugs also, okay, in the application. Okay, somebody new to completely IT field, it's a little difficult to understand this. Okay, defects or bugs means there is no deviation from the requirement, or the application is behaving the way it is. Okay, then this is when the application is stable. This is when the application is stable. Now performance testing can be done on the stable application. So imagine what would happen if system testing, okay, system testing and performance testing are happening in parallel. Okay, in parallel. Okay, let's imagine what would happen. Okay, so imagine what would happen. Okay, what would happen. So both of them have started in parallel. So you are doing your performance testing and system testing, they are doing their system testing and you are doing your testing, and both of them are in parallel. And after few weeks or couple of weeks, then you said, oh, performance testing is done, okay, is done and it's good. Okay, this is what you have said, or this is what you are recommended, or suggested, or you came to the conclusion after doing the performance testing. Okay, now system testing is done in parallel. System testing is happening in parallel. Okay, system testing is happening in parallel. Okay, which means that there are some defects, or there could be defects, or typically there will be defects. So once there are defects, these defects will be fixed. Okay, these defects will be fixed, and there is a new release or build. In the last class, we have discussed about what is a new release or build. So can somebody tell me what is a new release or new build, guys? When I said new release or new build, what do I mean? In the last class, I've clearly told you, as an IT guy, forget about performance testing guy, you need to understand this terminology. Okay, new release or new build. Okay, which means that new code. Okay, they have made changes to existing code, or they have added a new code, which means that whatever the performance testing you have done, it's all wasted because it's done on the old code now. Okay, so old code, you have done the performance testing on the old code. Okay, imagine guys, imagine somebody is working in a supermarket. Okay, in India it's called supermarket, in US it's called a grocery store. Okay, grocery store. Okay, like a Walmart. Now let's say you are the one who are supposed to go around and check and note down, okay, note down all the stock which is there on the racks, okay, which are there on the racks. Like you're saying that, oh, there are so many soaps, there are so many shampoos over there. So you're noting down all the stock which are there on different racks, and you're working on the grocery store. Now the new stock have come and they have arranged all the new stock again. They have put the new stock into the racks. Okay. Now all your efforts is gone because whatever you have noted down, it's no more valid because they have updated the racks, or they have filled the rack with the new stock. So you have to go ahead and again note down everything. Then again the new stock has come, and then they fill the racks with the new stock. So every time you have to go back and do it because the old readings are no more applicable. The old readings that you have noted down is no more applicable because every time they are making changes to it, or people came and bought out some stuff, so they have took away some stuff and they have filled the new rack. So then again you have to go down and note down the stock. So this activity will go on. It's a never-ending story. Similarly, if system testing and performance testing is happening in parallel, okay, system testing and performance testing is happening in parallel, okay. So then they keep on changing the code because there will be defects. When they are doing the system testing, okay, there will be defects all the time. When there are defects, they have to fix the code. And they fix the code, they change the code. Again, there is a new build. Now again you do the performance testing. Again there is a defect because defects usually comes in, it will come every day. The defects would come every day. So every day there will be changes to the code, or every week there are changes to the code. And every week there is a new build. So again, you have to go back and do the performance testing. How many times you will do the performance testing? Because every week you have a new code. So that cannot be done. This is what we are saying, that it is unstable code or unstable build. So for doing the performance testing, what is the basic thing you need? You need a stable code. You need a stable code. Stable code means which does not change, that often, at least if it's changing after 2 to 3 weeks, then there is a point. But every week or every day it is changing, there is completely, it's unstable code or unstable build, and you cannot do the performance testing on that. Okay, so are you understanding, guys, why system testing and performance testing cannot be done in parallel? I want you to understand this, because this could be your interview question. They would ask you, what is the ideal time? When would you do performance testing? Only after the system testing is done. Why? Because when they are doing the system testing, every day they are identifying the defects. When they are identifying the defects, they have to fix it. Once they have fixed it, then there is a new release. Okay? For example, okay, again guys, when I said you're working, it's not, don't literally imagine that you're working, but I use this term. Let's say you're working on as a quality analyst in a trouser warehouse. Okay, so maybe let's say Lee Levi's. I'm using Lee Levi's because all the Indian guys are also aware of these brands. Okay, so you're doing the quality check. So whenever they manufacture the jeans, first you have to check it before it would be shipped out of the company or that manufacturing unit. Okay, so you took the jeans. Okay, then you looked at whole of it. And then you identified some defects, saying that, oh, this pocket need not have to be here, and then the jeans is like rigged more than required. So you came out with some defects. Okay, then you said that, okay, send these jeans to fixing. So they send it back to the fixing. Again, the tailor has done the changes that you have recommended. Again, it came back to you. Now again you identify some defects. You did the quality check. Again you identify the defects and you send it back. So this is not the stable jeans. It cannot be sold outside. You cannot do the performance testing on it. So once all that fixing is done, now you send these jeans to performance testing. Performance testing is maybe they will pull it, they will put the stress test, or they might do anything on it. I don't think there is performance testing on jeans, but just for the discussion purposes. Okay, so now you see, every time you're sending back, he's fixing the defects and giving it to you. Now again you're checking the jeans, again you're identifying the defects, sending it back to the tailor. What is the tailor or developer is doing? He's fixing the jeans. Again he's fixing the jeans, he's giving back to you. So like this, multiple iterations are going on until you get a stable version of the jeans. Then you say that, oh, this is good. Okay. Similarly, same thing is happening with the code as well. You're doing the system testing, the code, and then there are defects. Then this will be fixed by the developer, which means that there are code changes. Once there are code changes, there is a new release or the build. And now, when I said new release or the build, it means that they made changes to the existing code, or they realized that they have to add this extra piece of code for fixing the defect. It could be any of that. So you have a new build. Like this, every 1 week or every 1 day, or every 2 days or every 3 days, you are having the new builds. You can never do the performance testing on it, because you have done, let's say there is a build. Let's say, guys, there is a build 3550. Okay, 35505. Okay, you have done the performance testing on this, and you say that, oh, performance is good. Then by the time you said performance test is good, there is the next release 3506, which means that the code is changed. Now again you have to do the performance testing on it. Then by the time you are doing this, again there could be new build because there are defects and all that. Then there could be 3507. Like this, how many times you will do the performance testing? It's not possible. What you are asking for is, you want a stable build, which means that there will not be any more changes. Or if there are changes, there could be only one. There's not like every 2 days, 3 days you are getting the build. So you cannot do that. Okay, maybe there is one change. Probably you can go back and again execute the load test again, just to make sure the performance is good. Okay, but every week there is changes, then it's called unstable code. By the way, this is what we call this as unstable. Okay, unstable. What is this? Unstable or unstable? What is the exact word, guys? Unstable is what you call, or unstable? unstable. Yeah, it's unstable. That's what I said. Okay, so this is what an unstable code is. And performance testing can never be done on unstable code or build. Okay, this is the right answer, guys. This is the right answer if they ask you. Okay, so it needs to be done in the stable build, or performance testing needs to be done on the stable build or the stable code or stable release. Okay, so that's what it is. You cannot say release, okay, code. So this is what it is, guys. So you see clearly I'm saying that performance testing must be done after the completion of SIT for me, but in some companies it's just done after ST itself. Okay. If any bottlenecks are found, an extra cycle of test execution will be needed. What does that mean, guys? What does that mean? Can somebody please explain? Can somebody tell me? If any bottlenecks are found, an extra cycle of test needs to be done.
Performance testing issues are there, then new test execution should be happened.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so whenever we are talking about test execution, okay, test execution, what do I mean? What do I mean? A load test. I know I haven't covered this. Okay, stress test in the class, or soak test, or scalability test. Okay, so this is what I talk about whenever I talk about performance test execution. So what they are saying is, if there are bottlenecks, okay, which means that there are issues in the system, okay, these issues or bottlenecks will be fixed by your developer. By whom it will be fixed, guys? It will be fixed by whom? It will be fixed by whom? A developer or a performance engineer. Okay, performance engineer. Okay, it will be fixed. Once it is fixed, we have already discussed in the PTLC. Once it is fixed, you have to go back and execute again. You have to go back and execute again. You have to go back and execute again. You cannot trust them that they have actually fixed. So there is an extra cycle of again load test needs to be done. What happens in the real world, guys, is you do the load test. The response times are bad. Which means that there are bottlenecks in the system. Then you send it for fixing. The developer or performance engineer will fix it. Then you go back. Then again you go back and execute the load test. Okay. If it is good, it is fine. If it is bad, then what would you do again, guys? If it is bad, what would you do again? If it is bad, what would you do again? Okay, you have executed it. Again, the performance is bad. What would you do again? Wonderful, Rahul. You go through another cycle of the same thing. Like this, cycle after cycle before you get a stable performance. And once that is done, then you start executing the stress test, soak test, and scalability test. That actually happens in the real world. This is what happens in the real world. Okay, so that's what you're saying. If the performance is bad or bottlenecks are identified, an extra cycle of test execution is required, especially the load test, not all the tests. Okay, and see the planning. This is the plan. Okay, you see exactly what looks like. I'll walk you through this. This is the plan. Again, your test manager or test lead or you yourself can plan it. Different stages. Okay, test plan, test environment, test data, test scripts, and test execution. For each one of them, what all the subtasks which are available, and what is the start date, what is the end date, and the owner of the task. Okay, so in the test plan, let's see what all the stages. Okay, test plan preparation, which means that this document needs to be prepared. Concentrate here, guys. It's very easy to understand. Okay, so this document needs to be created. Let's say the start date is 11/20/2018. Okay, now this document preparation needs to be done, let's say by 11/26/2018. So you have almost 5 days or 6 days to complete this test. Let's say the owner of this is Melly. Okay, the owner of this is Melly. Now walkthrough. Okay, walkthrough. So let's say she's a performance tester. Now walkthrough, again, it is done, let's say on 11/27/2018. 2018. In typically when you come to IT industry, guys, make sure first is day, month, year. Okay, in US, I know this is how it is followed, so you need not have to be explained. But for Indian folks, I want you to know that first is month, then day, and then year. Okay, in India, we have a habit of putting first date and then month. No, this is month and date is what usually people follow. Okay, and the walkthrough should happen on the same day. Okay, or let's say the next, you have 2 days for that planning and all that, sending the invite and walking through and all that. And let's say the lead for this project is Samir. Okay, so we'll put Samir's owner. So owner Samir has to walk through this test plan. Sign off, let's say is on 11/28, okay, 2018. Okay, so sign off needs to be done. People have 3 days, let's say you give 3 days or 2 days for sign off, so that the people needs to review and sign off. Okay, the owner of it is maybe Samir himself who needs to send, but along with that, all the stakeholders who needs to sign off. Let's say Jack and Mark and Stacy are the ones who are supposed to give the sign off. So you put all the names of them. Okay, Samir will be coordinating with all these 3 guys to get this signed off. Okay, now this is done. Now test environment. Okay, you see, we have our own performance testing environment. Okay, there are only 2 tasks. The performance test plan environment is already built. I'm assuming that it's already built. If this is a new project, then we have to assume that it's not built, and you have to add that line as well. Okay, PT environment. Okay, PT environment needs to be built. Okay, needs to be built. Okay, so time probably when the project has started, probably let's say the project has started on 01/2018. Okay, it needs to be done by let's say 11/31. They take at least 1 month to complete this. Okay, and who is the owner? The infrastructure team. Okay, infrastructure team. But let's say your test manager is supposed to coordinate with them and make sure it is done by 11/31. So let's say your test manager name is Praveen, or let's say Kyran. Okay, Kyran. Okay, so Kyran is supposed to coordinate. He's the test manager, let's suppose. So he's coordinating with the infrastructure team and making sure your performance testing environment will be up and running by the end of 11th month. Okay. Code drop, let's say it's 12/01/2018. Okay, so code drop means with the latest build, whatever the latest build that needs to be deployed into this application. You already know what is deployment, guys. Okay, if you have attended my architecture diagram, you know what is deployment. So the latest code, whatever is the latest code, which is there on 11/21. Okay, as you see, the code changes every day, or it could change every week. So whatever is the latest code, if you're going with this, the latest build is 35507. Okay, that needs to be deployed. And let's say for deployment, you're giving 2 days. Okay. Okay, so who is again, let's say responsible is your lead, who is Samir. So Samir coordinates with the dev team to get this done. Okay, so like this. And shakedown, once the code is done, then you will doing the shakedown. Okay, so 11/12/02/2018. Okay, for shakedown 1 day is enough. So 12/03/2018. Okay, again, who is responsible? Let's say the performance tester typically is responsible for that. The owner is Melly. Okay, again, test data setup. It could start in parallel with the test environment. There is no dependency of this. So it could start as soon as the environment is ready. The environment is ready by when? 11/31. So the test data setup can happen from 11/31. Once the environment is ready, you can start working on the test data setup. Okay, so let's say you need 1 week for that. So 12/07/2018. Okay, so yeah, you need 1 week for that. Again, who will help you with the test data setup? The DB team. Okay, let's say a proper person from the DB team, you can put a name over here. Okay, and then maybe your lead should be coordinating with the development team to get it done. It is the ownership of DB team and Samir to get the test data done, and by this time it should be done. Or maybe you can give 1 more week because test data setup is lot of time. Okay, maybe you're giving 2 weeks. Okay, then then the projects, then the test scripts. Okay, this is the third phase, the test scripts. We have assumed this is a buffer project, right? So let's say buffer, yeah, test scripts. Okay, so instead of buffer, let's just say test script preparation. Okay, let's say test script preparation. Okay, so as soon as the shakedown is done, guys, as soon as the shakedown is done, you can start creating the test scripts. So 12/03/2018 is when you can start creating the test scripts. Okay, maybe let's say you need 1 month. Okay, so which means that 12/30/2018. Okay, so who is the owner? Maybe Melly is the only performance tester. She's the only one who is creating the test scripts. So you can put the test scripts. She has 1 month now to create the test scripts. As you can see, as she is creating the test scripts, there is test data which is happening at the back end. Okay, for creating the scripts, you need a minimum data. You don't need a whole lot of data. So as soon as that data is done, she can start creating the test scripts. So these two things can happen in parallel as well. Okay, then I've told you. Then I have told you when it comes to test execution, there are different things. You see, shakedown test, load test. Some people call this as peak load test as well. Soak test, stress test, and you have a scalability test. You can put that scalability test also over here. Okay. Okay, scalability test. So for each test, how long you want to take? So once the test scripts are done, then you can do the shakedown test. Okay. Okay. So once the test scripts are done, this is when you can start with the execution. The first test, as I've told you, is the shakedown test. When I'm discussing about the controller, I've clearly told you why you need a shakedown test. Why you need a shakedown test. Can somebody tell me why would you need a shakedown test, guys? Can somebody tell me why would you need a shakedown test? I've spent quite some time understanding, helping you understand why you need a shakedown test. Can somebody tell me why would you need a shakedown test? Okay, one is to verify whether all your scripts are working fine and you can go into the actual testing. And what are the other reasons? Because that's an interview question. Okay, so Samir, yeah, check there are no errors in the scripts and more. Wonderful, Shweta. There's no environment issues. Good. I want to hear from all of you. I mean, all of you would have attended that class. No issue with the data, no issue with the environment, no issue with the scripts. Yes, these are all the reasons why you need a shakedown test. Okay, somebody who have attending my classroom classes, we have also demonstrated that. In the first run, there were a lot of errors. Then we went ahead and fixed those errors as well. And we understood why shakedown test is so important. Okay, anyways. First, you do the shakedown test. Again, you put the dates for that. Maybe 1/1/2018. Okay, and let's say you have given yourself 2 days for that shakedown test. So you give that. Okay, who is responsible? Typically, Melly. I mean, the performance tester herself will be responsible for that. Like this, you give number of days. How many you need? Typically, for the first test, which is the load test, you give 1 week, guys. Okay, because you don't know what all the issues you might face. So typically you give 1 week for this. Okay, so typically you give 1 week for this, the first test, because there are a lot of cycles. Okay, as you have discussed, the performance is bad, you send them the code, they fix it, they give it back to you, then there is cycles. So there could be more than one cycle here. Okay, there could be more than one cycle here. This is just, we have discussed that. Okay, so typically you have 1 week to 1.5 week which you can give here, and all other tests 1 day is more than enough, because once this test is done, you know that the scripts are working fine, the environment is run, the performance is good, and all that, and none of them needs more than one cycle, except if possible maybe scalability test. So typically you give only 1 day for the other test. Okay, so maybe this is 1 day, and typically it will be all Melly. So now you got an overall picture as to what will happen. If you have heard this last 10 minutes very clearly, I'm telling you guys, you would have gotten the complete picture as to what goes in the real world. who is responsible for what activity, and each task, how many subtasks it will be typically divided into. And it sees, each task will be shared across the responsibilities, ownership will be shared across performance tester or performance test lead and performance test manager, okay, or maybe the clients as well. Okay, so you got some things you would have I identified that some tasks will happen in parallel as well. The ones which doesn't have dependency, those tasks have in parallel. You see, this test environment preparation and all these activities happening in parallel, because test environment has nothing to do with test planning. Okay, test data, a certain part of test data and test scripts would happen in parallel. Okay, so like this, and and you see the execution only happens after the complete test scripts are created. And you see the test scripts only happen after the environment is ready and certain data is available. So like this, there's a lot of dependencies. Okay, there are a lot of tasks which happen in parallel. Okay, so you need to pay attention. If you paid attention in the last 10 minutes, you clearly know what happens, what all the tasks which happens, and who is responsible for that, what all the things which happen in parallel. And now you can talk in the interviews as to what will happen, or even now before you get into the project, you know what all will happen. When will you start creating the test scripts? When the test data is set up to certain extent is ready, and the performance testing environment is done, and also the test planning is done. Once the whole test planning is done and performance testing environment is ready, and to certain extent the test data is ready, this is when the test scripts would start. Test scripts would start getting created. A lot of people will ask me this question. So Kumar, I'm going into the new project. It's completely new to me. What would I do? As soon as I go there, should I start creating the test scripts from day one? No. Typically, if they hired you on probably, let's say on 11/1, you would start creating the test scripts from 12/03, maybe after a month. Okay, or probably this is when actually the project has started. This is when the NFRs are being collected. Okay, collected. So definitely, like, you're not starting on day one. You are not creating the test scripts. This is something which I want you to get into your heads, guys. Okay, or maybe the project has started on 11/1 itself. Okay, but they have hired you probably on 11/15 or 11/20. Then within 10 days, within 10 days, you are starting the scripting. So what would I suggest? Okay, when will I start creating the test scripts? I'm not the person to answer. Once you get into the project, see if the test plan is created. If the test plan is created, go ask for the test plan. And once the test plan, you go ask for it, go into the section called test schedule and milestones and see, okay, what all the responsibilities of the performance tester, and when is the test script creation, and when you are starting creating the test scripts, you yourself will know when you would start creating the test scripts, or when you would start creating the scripting part. Okay, are we clear, guys? Are we clear, all of you, this section? Are we clear? Okay, so instead of you asking me, it's better you look at this test plan or the test schedule, so that you right away know what are your responsibilities as a performance tester, and when will you start doing your activity. Okay, so typically what I would say is, before you are hired, you would have 1 month before you start creating the test scripts. In that 1 month, you are trying to understand the business functionalities, the application, you read through the test plan architecture, you go through the NFR documents, so and see how the tool is and all that. Okay, there are tasks that you get familiar with in that 1 month, not that you'll just go and sit idle. These are all the things that you do. But before you start creating the first script, it will be a certain time. Okay, this is what it is for general V model. There are different models like agile and all that. When you get into agiles, the whole things will change. Okay, but this is for the V model that I'm talking about. Okay, so we'll take a break of 5 minutes, guys. I know we already consumed 1 hour. All I need is 15-20 minutes, and then we'll be done with the test plan. Okay, so but I know there are no responses coming from you, so it's a little disappointing from my end. So I'll give you a 5 to 10 minutes break. I know there's a lot of theory, and if you have not known IT, this is also overwhelming. But don't get overwhelmed, guys. It's not a problem. Okay, once you get into the IT field, as you spend more time over there, this is all, all the tasks you experience it over there. I'm right now I'm talking about it, but once you get there, you experience it, and once you experience it, you will not forget it. Okay, but I just want you to, somebody who's not getting the whole thing, it is totally fine. If you get 20% of whatever I've spoken, it should be good enough. But what I would suggest is listen to these recorded videos over and over and over and over again. Maybe while you're traveling while you're commuting on your what do you say, cars. Just hook this up to your speakers, the car speakers. You would have plugs, right? You can play this video from your mobile phone, and then connect it to your car speakers, maybe via Bluetooth, or there are cords using which you can connect. And then don't watch it, just listen to it. Don't watch the video, because while you are driving, it's not suggestible to watch. But at least you can hear, rather than hearing music. You can hear this. Maybe if you are hearing 3 to 4 times, then things starts becoming clear and clear to you, who are completely new to IT. Every day you commute, right? Everybody commutes like at least half an hour. As soon as you start commuting, play it in your mobile phone, this video, and connect it to your car speakers, and start peacefully hear how much ever you could. At least you're comfortable. At least these words like build, release, system testing, when it will happen, and all that becomes clear to you. And these tasks, subtasks, everything will become clear to you. Okay, that's what I would suggest, guys. There is no other way. So again and again, over and over again, you hear those terms will get into your mind. And whether you're going as a QA or anything else, you are supposed to use this terminology: the builds, the code, defects, bottlenecks, test plans, test environments, all this. Okay, so this is what I would suggest. So I'll be back in 10 minutes, guys. Let me take it 10 minutes. 5 minutes is too less. Okay, let me take a 10 minutes break. When I come back, expect the class to go for maybe 15 more minutes. Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you for your time. So thank you for the audience. I was expecting, I know it's a holiday weekend and all that. So still there is a good crowd. I'm so happy about the crowd. Okay, there's certain people who are interested. Okay, nice to see that. Yeah, so we'll be back in 10 minutes.
that bootstrap our
Okay, guys, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Hello? Yeah, thank you. So I took a little longer break, I believe, maybe in 15 minutes. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that, guys. So, yes. So let's get started. I think the session is getting still recorded. Oh, yeah. I should have stopped recording actually. Anyways. Okay. Now the next section, in the previous sections, we have clearly seen the test schedule and the milestone dates for each task. Okay, each task of performance testing lifecycle, each deadline for each of the subtasks and the owner of that subtask we have clearly mentioned. Okay, if you just understand this Excel sheet or this one single page, okay, I'm telling you clearly, you know what would actually happen in the real-time project. Okay. So the last 15-20 minutes, whatever it is before the break, listen to it multiple times so that you get a clear picture as to what all the tasks which are there, who is responsible for what, and how much timelines usually a particular task would take. Okay, and what are the things which happen in parallel. And if you are a performance tester, then you should put yourself in the shoes of Melly and think about it. Okay, that's what I would do. That's what I would do. Okay, now. Yeah, roles and responsibilities. Whose responsibility is what? Okay, typically, you know, you have to have the responsibility of all the people clearly laid down. Okay, there are a lot of people involved. Okay, so first, the program manager. Okay, let's say the program manager is um, take any name, maybe Majid is our program manager. So let's say Majid is the program manager, and program manager means he's a big guy. I'm telling you guys. Okay, he's the head of development team, you know, system testing, system integration testing, performance testing, security testing, or in other words, the testing, development, the database, servers, architect, for all of them are reporting to this program manager. So he's the head of the complete project. Okay, who is a program manager? He's the head of the complete project. Okay, typically. Okay. Okay, program manager. So typically is the head of the complete project. Okay, so complete project means he's the head of developers. Okay, the head of developers, database guys, network guys. Okay, and performance testing. In testing means all of them, like system testing, integration testing, all of them. Okay, everybody out there. Okay, so uh, okay, so the DB guys, whoever is involved in the project, he's the head of them guys. Every single guy who is involved in the project, he will be reporting to the program manager. It's as simple as that. So what is the roles and responsibility of his? Okay, so he's the escalation for blah blah blah, escalation point for all the testing related risk, escalation point for all the defect fixes. So any escalation you are supposed to do, so is this the guy? Okay, so it's saying that, oh, the DB team is not working with you properly, then you escalate to the program manager. Or the network team are not helping you out, or is not properly responding to you, then if you go to the performance test manager, he's only the manager of performance testing. He's not the manager of other teams. So whenever you're dealing with other teams, okay, and they are not responding back to you, or they are not doing their work, or they're not responsible enough in answering your questions and all that, so you can go to our Majid. Okay, so Majid, are you there? No, Majid is not there, so he left for the day. Okay, so yes, he's the guy for that. Okay, then you have your performance test manager. Okay, then you have your performance test manager. So let's assume I'm your performance test manager. This is, instead of Mercury, we thought it will be a BOFA. Okay, BOFA. Okay, so instead of Mercury, we thought it's a BOFA. So performance test manager. So you see, provides supports for performance testing, addresses and provides updates on Mercury defects and all that. Okay, BOFA defects. Okay, so this is a guy who is completely responsible. Okay, for all that. This is from the vendor side. Okay, if there are any vendors. Okay, now it's a test team. Again, we have our own program manager. Okay, so escalating point related to the issues as noted above, escalated point for all the testing related activity and all that. Actually, this guy cannot be repeated in two of them. Okay, but let's say it's there. Okay, IT program manager, his responsibilities. IT project manager, his responsibilities. Maybe performance tester is also there. Performance test lead. Okay, his responsibilities. Okay, performance tester or performance test specialist. Okay, his responsibilities. Like this, for all of them, you clearly put down what all the responsibilities. Okay, performance test lead, maybe creating the test plan. Okay, driving the testing related activities. Okay, now you tell me, as a performance tester, what all the things that you're supposed to do. Just can you tell me any responsibilities as a performance test specialist? Can you come out with any responsibilities that you can think of? You've been listening to my classes from last 3 weeks. As a performance tester, what is that thing that you're responsible for? Anything that you could remember? Wonderful. Yeah, creating test scripts using Vusion. Okay, it's creating the test scenarios using controller. Okay, executing the scenarios, not scripts. Okay, creating test report, test completion report or test report. Okay, so like this, there are multiple what do I say? Multiple tasks for the test specialists as well, which will be clearly laid down here. Okay, like this, each guy and then their corresponding responsibilities. Again, you got into the project, you wanted to know your responsibilities. Obviously, they will tell you what is your role name. Is it a performance test lead or performance test specialist? Come back over here, check what all the responsibilities you have as a performance test specialist. So most likely than not, this is what you go with. Okay, but if you're going with this one as well, clearly see what is the responsibilities. this. And also look at the responsibilities of other people as well, so that if you face some issues, you know whom to go to. Okay, if you face some issues, you know whom to go to. Okay, so you have to clearly see these sections to see who all the people who are involved in the project. Like this, now you see there is a guy called Kumar, there is a guy called Gupta, there is a guy called Anand. There are different people involved with different roles, and you know where to go to if there is an issue. You know where to go to if there is an issue. Okay. Now test environment, guys. Okay, we already spoken about this test environment in our in our architecture classes. Okay, clearly we have discussed about this test environments. Okay, so the same thing you put it down here. Okay, so if you wanted to know about the test environment, this is one place you can come and look at what all the servers which are there, what is the hardware and what is the softwares which are involved, what are the specifications and all that. It is clear. Okay, and what are the different softwares. Okay, so like this, we are using AIS server over here. Okay, so like this, all the information will be put down over here. Okay, and the test tools that you're planning to use for this project, maybe the load runner, maybe Dynatrace and all that, and purpose of each of those tools, and the test data, what all the data that is required and what is the source. So that's about it, guys. So that's about it. Okay, and finally there are two things that are extremely important. The people are leaving. I know it's a little boring and hard, so people are leaving. So finally, there is, before I let you go, okay, I'll talk about these two things. I just need 10 minutes. One is the test entry criteria and one is the test exit criteria. In the interviews, they will definitely ask about this entry criteria and exit criteria, guys. Okay, test entry criteria and exit criteria. An entry criteria is when can you start your testing. Okay, when can you start your testing? In the interviews, they will ask you when can you start your performance testing. When the entry criteria is met. Don't tell them that when the scripts are ready, or when I receive the NFR document, or when the test plan is ready. All that. When can you start doing the performance testing? When the entry criteria is met. And when can you stop your performance testing in the project? When the exit criteria is met. As simple as that. So let's see what is the entry criteria. Performance test plan is approved. Okay. Workload modeling is completely approved. Okay. Test schedule is approved. Okay. Agreed. Acceptance criteria is agreed. Non-functional requirements are available and approved. Okay. All applications functionality tested in on the system integration level. Okay. Which means that the system testing is done. Okay, SIT is done. Okay, so like this, there could be a lot of entry criteria that you put. Okay, once all the entry criteria are put, you just mark each one as yes, and when you see all the yeses over here, then you can start doing executing your performance test. Maybe load test or stress test or scalability test or endurance test Okay. This is what it is, guys. Okay, when all the activities or all the points which are mentioned in the entry criteria, they are met, then you can start executing your performance testing. Okay, you see application functionality is stable and no outstanding defects. Okay, like this, there are a lot of entry criteria which are there. You put down all the entry criteria, or your lead will put down, and before you start executing the test, come to the entry criteria, make sure everything is achieved. Once everything is approved or achieved, then you can start your performance testing or start executing your performance testing. Okay, so go through the entry criteria points here, guys. Very important. In the interview, they will ask you what is the entry criteria for your project, or what is that you put as an entry criteria. Even though you didn't do the performance test plan or you haven't created it, but you are supposed to know the test entry criteria because you would have executed the test. Before executing the test, you have to come back here and check if my entry criteria is met. Yeah, entry criteria will be there for manual testing as well. In every testing, you have the entry criteria. Okay. Now exit criteria, same thing. When can you stop your performance testing? You see, the test completion report is prepared, signed off by the relevant stakeholders. The results are available. Okay. So clearly, 100% test in scope has been executed as per the test plan. So in the test plan, whatever you said which are in scope, all of that is done. Like this, there are a lot of exit criteria as well. Okay, so this is extremely important, guys. Entry criteria and exit criteria. In simple words, entry criteria is when you can start your performance testing or when you can start executing your performance test, and exit criteria is when you can stop your performance test. When you can stop your performance test. Okay, and progress tracking. This is extremely important for the high level management. If the project is going well or not, and when it has went into red or when it is in green or when it went into yellow, they will be able to look it from here. They'll keep multiple checkpoints, and then based on that, they will see the progress of your project. So you see, kickoff meeting. Okay, test plan sign off. Walk through the load test plan, lock in the scope. Okay, that's the first checkpoint. Okay, this is when you know that, okay, the project is starting, when the test plan is signed off. Okay, second meeting is when you have the meeting. The first meeting is the test plan meeting. Okay, when you walk through the test plan. Second meeting is the checkpoint. At what points? 40% of the project, 70% of the project. Maybe as the scripts are done, you will have a meeting with all the people and say that, oh, there are complete 14 scripts I have to create. Now we are done with the 14 scripts. Okay, you will set up a meeting with the client. You show them all the scripts and say that, oh, this is all done. Okay, that is 40%. Maybe once you have done with the load test, you will have one more meeting. Okay, one more checkpoint meeting with the end client. And finally, once the whole test is done, you will have one more meeting with the end client to show the complete report. Again, there will be a walkthrough of this report. And status, when will you give the status? On the daily basis. You send a status mail on the daily basis. You send a status mail on the daily basis. The purpose, whatever it is. You can tell them, update that whatever the defects is causing the issue, any issues which is stopping you, there are people who are not supporting you, and how many scripts you have completed. These kind of things you will keep a update. Okay, so these are the reports. So you give them a daily status report. Okay, by the end of the day, you will have a meeting at the starting of the project once the test plan is signed off, and you will have a checkpoint at 40% and 70% to show the results. Maybe once the scripts is done, you will have a meeting with your end client, and once the load test is done, you will have a meeting with them, and once the whole testing is done, you will have one more meeting. So this is what it is. So this is about it, guys. So this is how a test plan would look like. Okay, so I'll send you this updated once again to you. Okay, let me save this. Okay. Maybe I'll save this as version 2 because I've done some changes. I'll send this document and the recorded video as well. Okay, so I hope you got a ballpark idea as to how the test plan would look like. Nowhere in the class I ask you for the doubts because I don't know, maybe the doubts would be relevant, or I just want you to give a walkthrough of this because there are certain students who wanted it as to get a feel for how a test plan would look like. So that was the general purpose of why I've actually went for this particular walkthrough. Okay, now if you have any questions, you can ask me now, guys. Not an issue. Anything that you needed to talk to me, yeah, let me know. I'm ready to answer these questions now. Okay, by the way, this is the end of the class. Okay, there's no more. The next weekend itself we will meet for the web services. Up until then, there's no weekend classes. Okay, the regular classes will be on the regular days, which is Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday for India, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday for US. Any question, guys? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, thank you, guys. Thank you. I hope you would have learned something that you didn't know, at least few points, and this video will help you to again, I strongly suggest to listen to this video over and over and over and over again, so that you totally understand what actually happens. Okay, but web services in the next weekend will go nice and slow. We'll understand each of them. It will take a little longer time, but we'll go nice and slow so that you really make sure that you understand how to do performance testing on web services. Okay, on that note, I'm taking off, guys. Have a good weekend. Enjoy. See you in the next class.